historically, we have always commingled economic integration with political elements. And whenever that comminglement happens, it gets derailed. And if you look at really from an investments perspective, where is the maximum dollars going? It's going into gas, especially as we talked about AI. The vast majority of kind of AI data centers are gas powered. And hence, that's creating a massive incremental demand for gas.
This episode is brought to you by EFG Hermes One, your one app for investing in more than 35 stock markets worldwide. Hi, everyone. This is part 2 of my conversation with Youssef Salem, the CFO of ADNOC Drilling. I think of you as a role model for young people entering the business world around the region. A very positive role model, especially as we're entering this uncertain water of AI. And, my son Ali is 21 and he is graduating next year from university. I worry for him. He's in a very good university in America. Will he find a job there? Will he find a job in Europe? Will he even find a job in the Middle East? Everything is narrowing. What are the tips you would offer a young man like Ali?
So first, it is a very worrying time, and the kind of the replacement of jobs by AI is extremely worrying. I think everyone who's out there saying don't worry, and just every time there's jobs destroyed, other jobs being created, and it's all about just as long as you learn how to use AI, you're fine. I think a lot of this is for public consumption, because this content does well online. So people just kind of comfort people. And also it is to avoid kind of having a lot of social anxiety among people. So kind of kick the can down the road. The reality is, again, I just came back from China. Every factory that had 500 people now has 100. It's across the board. So kind of it is a real concern. There's going to be less opportunities, and people have to understand that the world's going to become way more competitive. And what's going to happen is not effectively that there's a kind of a magic way out. That if once every 500 people become 100, it's not. If you used to be number 101. Now you will not have a job. So you need to make sure that you are within the top 100 people. So first, you just need to become better. You need to become the top of whatever you do, because there will just be less jobs. So that's number one. 2 is, yes, whatever effectively makes us human, we need to absolutely double down on it. So effectively from an emotional intelligence, communication, because there's absolutely no way we can compete with the machine on what the machine does better. So we need to basically be able to continue to differentiate on where we can do. So for example, storytelling is something that is still human. So we need these things which are more human in nature. Third is, yes, obviously networking is very critical, because the lesser opportunities you have, that effectively means, again, these opportunities, a lot of them will be hired directly by people, because you're not filling anymore 1,000 roles. You're filling 10 roles. So you're more likely to be filling them directly from people you know and trust and have interacted with, as opposed to kind of mass hiring, and hence being able to be out there in every kind of conference and event and exhibit and showcase yourself and present yourself to people is very important.
I hear what you're saying, and I completely agree with you 100%. The generation of my son are the ones who went into university right after COVID. And that generation are so used to doing everything online that the personal interaction, the interpersonal interaction is a not a struggle, but it's not something that comes naturally. They're used to doing everything behind a screen. They're used to texting, not making a phone call. They're used to doing not necessarily wanting to see people in real life. It's a big, big problem, and I don't know how they surmount this. So yeah, it is a worry. It is a worry. Although the flip side to that is that they're digital natives, they're AI natives. So at least they have that technology is second nature to them in a way that it isn't to me. So I guess there's a pro and a con to all of this,
Absolutely. Look, I think I always believe, I'm born 1992. I believe my generation is the absolute luckiest, because we kind of got educated within the 90s and the 2000s in what has relatively been kind of probably the calmest period in the region, and probably even the calmest period globally in terms of the least number of wars and disruptions. So generations kind of before us has had to live through so many kind of regional wars, whether it's in Lebanon with the civil war, whether it's in Egypt. And then generations after us, starting 2011, had to kind of live through the Arab Spring and COVID and so many things. So we got so lucky that we got educated in a very, very calm time. And then we used that to kind of navigate more difficult times after we've already entered the workspace. So I agree. I think the generation entering now, whether it's geopolitics, whether it's AI, competition, is in a kind of a much more kind of challenging. And that's why, again, kind of everyone there's no easy way around it. Just everyone has to step up and kind of work so hard.
Let's go back to your specific sector, oil and gas. We just got a hard lesson in the Iran war that oil is still omnipresent, essential, vital, in a way that I think we had been deluding ourselves for the last 15 years that, shale, alternative energies were more important. But we got a hard lesson in reality. Tell me, how did you guys at ADNOC Drilling respond to that? I'm assuming you knew that all along, and none of us did.
Look, that's interesting because if you look at the latest IEA report at the International Energy Agency, well before the war started, they were saying that oil demand will continue to grow at least until 2050, and gas demand will continue to grow at least until 2070. In the Ukraine-Russia war in 2022, people said exactly the same thing, that effectively all of a sudden gas became obviously ever more critical. So Europe had to reactivate coal plants in order to supply energy. So I think at the end of the day, there's really nothing new that happened here, and these facts and figures were out there. But as you said, maybe some people just chose to ignore them, but they were always kind of out there in plain sight. I think from an ADNOC Drilling perspective, I think the kind of our kind of slogan is basically kind of energy for life, and our mission is basically kind of maintaining global energy security, and that effectively energy has to be affordable, sustainable, kind of and reliable. Right? And that's what we continue to do. So all throughout the events, we've continued to drill. So we have not had any material impact from the events because, again, we understand that we have effectively two missions during these events. One is to protect our people, to make sure always people are safe and we don't put them in hazardous way. And on the other hand, to make sure we continue to guarantee energy security for the world. And effectively, we balance these two things by making sure we have all the business continuity and crisis management protocols that allow us to keep our people safe while we continue to drill.
And tell me, Youssef, I mean, I'm assuming like every business or every part of our region, do you have an alternative energy plan as a company?
What we call this at ADNOC is energy addition, right? Because the demand load for energy is increasing so much, you need to have the alternative energy. Like you cannot go without, and that's why the UAE has nuclear, has renewables. That's why it's exploring hydrogen, geothermal, because it is not a zero-sum game and it's not mutually exclusive. So yes, oil and gas also alone is not sufficient. You need the nuclear, you need the renewables, and that's why, again, if you look at the kind of how ADNOC positions itself, it's an integrated energy company. So you need all of these sources.
And what are the sources that you're most excited about at ADNOC as an alternative energy?
Overall, between the two, gas obviously will continue to play the longest role because it is, if you want, that fuel that spans both. So on one hand, obviously, it is very reliable. You can use it for your base load of energy. It's not dependent on any kind of weather conditions. It's kind of very attractive in terms of price. But on the other hand, it also has lower emissions, kind of relatively speaking, relative to oil. And that's why, if you look at the overall span, that's the fastest growing piece, kind of in terms of absolute volume. Obviously, something like hydrogen will be growing faster as a percentage because it's starting from a very low base. But if you look at really from an investments perspective, where is the maximum dollars going? It's going into gas, especially as we talked about AI. The vast majority of kind of AI data centers are gas powered, and hence that's creating a massive incremental demand for gas.
When we come back after the break, Youssef will tell me how he's trying to leave an impact on the younger generation. This episode is brought to you by EFG Hermes One, your one app for investment across more than 35 stock markets worldwide. With EFG Hermes One, you can buy and sell orders in real time for immediate execution across multiple global markets. You can keep track of your favorite stocks by creating and customizing multiple watch lists, and make informed investment decisions with their advanced technical analysis tools to study market trends and investor behavior. So supercharge your financial journey and download the EFG Hermes One app on the Apple App Store and on Google Play and start investing today. when the war began, the Iran war of February of this year, every company has a crisis management toolkit at the ready for whatever might be coming. What was your toolkit, or what was your crisis plan, and did it meet the expectations? Did you roll it out well, and did you manage to mitigate against some of the problems? How did you manage the crisis as a company?
Thankfully, it played out extremely well. So actually, the first step in the crisis management came from the exchange itself, from the Abu Dhabi exchange. They've effectively exercised immediately their playbook. And their playbook was to effectively, so the events started on the weekend. And effectively, their strategy was to to not open the market for a couple of days once the weekday opened. And effectively, these give companies time to activate their own playbooks on what public disclosure they will be able to make sure that when the market opens, there is no vacuum, there is no panic, and effectively the investors know exactly what's going on. So effectively then our playbook played into this, because effectively by the time the market opened, we had already released a statement confirming that there has been no material impact on our operations and that business continues as normal. And that's why effectively any blip in the share price was very limited, and it immediately recovered to pre-war levels. So that was the first point. Operationally, we have very clear priorities that we always set up in these situations internally. Number one priority is people. We have to make sure that everyone is safe. So anyone who can potentially be in hazard way in any location has to be removed from it. Thankfully, that there weren't. Second is the integrity of our assets. So all our rigs and all our assets have their safety, and their integrity of the assets themselves have to be maintained. And again, here, thankfully, with the UAE armed forces and defense systems, that took care of that, of making sure nothing hit our assets. And then the third level is the commitments we've made. So we've made commitments to our clients to supply services, to our investors to deliver certain financials. So effectively, if in any cases we had certain kind of businesses where, like, for example, you had slightly lower volumes, then making sure that we can over-deliver from other business segments which are operating as normal in order to maintain our overall commitments.
That's interesting. And I wonder how, after every crisis, there is a sort of an assessment of what worked and what didn't. And I'm sure you guys are going to have an interesting discussion about, what to do in the future, what worked and what didn't. But it's, I find that a really interesting part of managing companies is this crisis issue. You've spoken about in the past about leaving an impact, of having an impact in what you do. How do you see yourself having impact going forward now?
So I think of it on multiple levels. First, I think of it on a public level, and I think the most direct impact there is that people, one, have the tools to pursue their ambitions. So in terms of any knowledge sharing, and that's why I try to focus half of the content I do online on more technical elements around finance, around career progression, things that give people tools to pursue. And the other half of it is that people are inspired to pursue their objectives with the tools they have. And that's why the remaining half of the content is more inspirational, is more motivational, is you can do it. Basically, that's always the bottom line. The other side, on a more work level, the impact really is from a Middle Eastern perspective. I think what we're all working for is we want to see our region catch up with the rest of the world. And there are specific areas where our region is more privileged and well advantaged. Obviously, one of them is energy, because we have the lowest cost of energy in the world. So that's an area for us to develop. One is technology, because technology in general is more dependent on talent. And we have a lot of human capital and talent in the region. So compared to some of the other sectors, which maybe are more resource heavy, that maybe we don't necessarily have it at the same level, in human capital, that's something we have. And that's why I try to focus a lot on working on technology side with startups, funds, accelerators, incubators, in order to push our region forward. So for me, that's really like day to day my work, trying to move the region forward with the actual specific work we do. And then the rest is basically content to try to inspire other people to also push forward.
What is our potential as a region in this? Can we get to any of these stages that we need to get to?
So one, we need to become a region Today, we're not a region. Today, we're just a collection of separate countries and separate systems. There's just one language that connects us. So we think of it as a region. But actually, any investor that comes from outside or any person still have to deal with 22 different laws and countries and systems. And hence, they don't see it as a region.
I want to ask you about that, Youssef, because that's always been something I thought of for the Middle East. Can we become an EU?
I think what we need to focus on is economic integration, because the problem is historically we have always commingled economic integration with political elements. And whenever that comminglement happens, it gets derailed because politics is for politicians, right? They have different considerations, they have different state things they need to keep in mind. Economics are much more straightforward. And hence, yes, I believe that if we kind of focus on economics as economics, we focus on free trade, on labor movement, on kind of a financial system integration, we can absolutely get there.
And I think that's the key to raising the entire region up.
Absolutely.
I've always felt that. I think that's your what's next
Yes.
career, Youssef. That's what I predict for you. You started a podcast, Youssef, as well?
Yes. So first, I kind of started just by kind of appearing as a guest with kind of incredible people like yourself who were kind enough to host me. Then one of the podcasts I appeared on, he said, "How can we collaborate more together?"
This is Rifai.
This is actually, so this is Makuk. So this is Mohammed Salem in Makuk before. So we worked together on a Ramadan show. So Ramadan before last, Ramadan 2025. And basically the first show was called Al Mal wal Quran. So Quran and money. And it was basically about taking kind of principles from Quran and applying them to today's world. So things like, for example, Quran already had arbitration, had verbal and written contracts, had like so many anti-monopoly, had so many systems that can be applied in today's world.
And how did you like it? Because I see you as a presenter. Did you enjoy it?
I loved it. And again, I think for me, one of the things is also it's on your point on presenter, it's a learning curve. Like when I look back at kind of the first episodes I've done, they're a disaster, right? But it's okay. And until now, I'm sure it's a semi-disaster, but it's okay.
It's not a disaster at all. You're doing very well.
And that's the whole point. So thank you. And then kind of Ramadan 26, we've done the second one. It's called Al Sira Al Idariyya. So it's basically revisiting the Prophet, peace be upon him, life, but revisiting from a management and a leadership and a finance perspective. So how did he lead? How did he negotiate? Because at the end of the day, when you look at the Prophet's life, a lot of it, he was negotiating. He was negotiating all the time. He was negotiating with other tribes, with his tribe, with people on the other side. A lot of people get stuck on the religious side. But if you put the religious side aside and look at his journey.
It's a very interesting angle because you bring him to life and you make him a real person
exactly.
and someone that we can relate to in today's world. Exactly.
Exactly. We have a verse explicitly saying, وَمَا مُحَمَّدٌ إِلَّا رَسُولٌ. Yani, he is a prophet. He is a human. At the end of the day, that's him. And at the end of the day, we have to put our theological beliefs aside and effectively understand that this is a person who went from kind of divided Arab tribes that are stuck in between the Romans and Persians to effectively in his time of 23 years and then kind of less than 100 years after that to effectively build an empire. We have to understand economically and leadership and financially, how did he actually do it? And it has actually so many lessons today where almost 1,400 years later, we find ourselves also in an Arab region where we're also between two massive superpowers on both sides. So it's almost the most relevant lesson for us. We had two sponsors for that Ramadan show who we're very grateful for. One is Mal and one is Converted. So Mal is a fintech out of Abu Dhabi. So they've been very kind not only to sponsor the Ramadan show, but then to say, actually, let's do a show together. So we launched basically a podcast, The Mal Show. We first launched it in English, and it's basically a show about money and ethics. So again, it's the same thing we're trying to talk about. On one hand, you have money, capitalism, economic, careers, etc. On the other hand, you have faith, religion, values, ethics. How
Morality.
Do you combine both?
Yeah.
Morality, exactly.
Very interesting, Youssef. I'd like to see, when did that start?
We started like a couple of weeks back. We now have 4 episodes out on the English show, and thankfully, we had a good start. So actually, we already launched an Arabic spin-off, so called Mal Show in Arabic, and now we have 2 episodes in Arabic as well. So we have an English channel and an Arabic.
Do you have a co-host or are you alone?
I'm hosting alone, but I have a great producer. Who's kind of doing an incredible job. So that's kind of helping
Youssef.
a lot. Yes.
So your creative side is being fed, which is great.
Trying,
It's
trying.
great. It's great. Youssef, I enjoyed that so much. We're finished.
Likewise, thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
I'm really happy as well that it's going to be something that I think young people will want to listen to and watch. They're the ones that have to build on all the things you want to do in the Middle East. And I pray that they're all going to be here and working and doing all these great things, you know?
Absolutely. Our future is in their hands, and I don't think we can afford the brain drain. We're already so behind in the region that we need a reverse drain. We need people to kind of come back in order
Yeah.
to lift us forward.
I agree 100%. Thanks for joining me today. I'm Malak Fuad. This episode was produced by Chirag Desai. I'll be back next week with a special episode from our sponsor, EFG Holding. I'll be talking to the co-CEO of EFG Hermes Investment Bank, Karim Musa, about his incredible personal and professional journey. Stay tuned for that. It's a really great chat.